Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Coaching Outdoors podcast. I'm in Scotland as always, Anne-Marie is down in the southwest, and we have the wonderful Professor Jonathan Passmore joining us again for another wonderful podcast. Jonathan joined us for the very first podcast we recorded, right at the very start of the Coaching Outdoors podcast launch, and we've asked him back again because we've been doing this for just over a year now, so we wanted to ask Jonathan to come back on as a sort of an anniversary edition. So Jonathan, what you do has changed slightly since we last spoke to you, so it'd be wonderful if you could introduce yourself to our listeners and just give us a flavour of what you're doing in the world of coaching at the moment.
Great, happy to, and really nice to be back, and what a fantastic success that you've had over the last year. And I've seen you go from the number of people who have been connecting to you just keeps going up and up and up and up, which is fabulous. So in terms of the last year for me, I was Professor of Coaching and Behavioural Change at Henley Business School. I'm still, but only part-time, a professor at Henley. And now the majority of my time is taken up as Senior VP at Coach Hub, which is a digital coaching platform, quite different from outdoor, but there are many flavors, many varieties of coaching. And our work predominantly is with medium and large corporates who are looking to build a coaching culture in their organizations and who have leaders, managers, executives, probably across many different geographical territories, and want to provide a scaled solution. And our offering is about democratizing coaching, so we can then coach 500 managers in 100 different languages across the world, and then support that with online learning content, our learning nuggets that help people between coaching sessions to then continue their personal developmental journeys.
What a change. Henley Business School, Coach Hub, blending the two as well. You must be busy at the moment, the B word. Oof. But it would just be...
I think we're all busy. And I know we were just talking earlier that the shift from COVID into the new hybrid working world, I continually come across people who are mixing and blending and have a variety of different portfolios in their personal career or their income. And that, of course, adds to the complexity and the busyness of our lives, but it also adds to the richness. If you've only got a bowl of spaghetti, after a little while, it becomes a little bit boring. Whereas if you've got your spaghetti, you've got your tomato sauce, you've got your onions, you've got a beautiful meal. And I think that many of us have enjoyed that sort of portfolio type arrangement with working. I enjoy the research and the academic environment, and Henley is a great place to do that. But also working in an entrepreneurial business that is going through significant growth, I find fun. And then I've got my sort of, my side hustle of continuing to write books, edit books, and speak at events around the world. So that's my combination.
And I mean, I love it. I'm a proper advocate of it. And that's kind of, I was, in the military, which was very disciplined, big institution. And I've totally shifted up the way that I work. And it is very much, yes, I've got the coaching, and then there's the athletic side of what I do as well, and my running and the love for that. And also within my coaching portfolio, as with a lot of coaches, there's an element of one-on-one, there's group, there's facilitation, there's content creation. So it's how do you get a blend of what interests you, and how can you kind of in a way share, be in service to your clients. And yes, there's also a financial piece around there as well. So bringing it back to the outdoors, and hopefully you have had time to have some time outdoors recently, it would just be interesting to hear of an outdoor experience which is memorable for you now. You normally have guests on, we talk about their first experience. Clearly you've already been on, we've heard about it, and being outside and playing as a 5-6-year-old in the field behind your house. So yeah, just an insight of one that's happened recently.
So I guess I would think about lockdown and how we were very lucky where we live. We're in the middle of the countryside. We have a footpath at the end of our garden. we're in a privileged position to go out across the fields, across nature, I suppose, and see the daffodils coming up or the snowdrops, watch the birds. We have a duck who's currently nesting about 3 meters from our front door and nested about 3 meters away in a different plant last year. We've got a red kite in the garden who's nesting as well. So we're exposed to nature, but lockdown, I think, often, or before lockdown, I love walking. And we would certainly, either my wife and I or friends and I would go out for walks at weekends, walk footpaths, long distance trails. So walking the Thames footpath or walking along the Southwest footpath, those sort of events, fabulous. But lockdown created a discipline of going for a walk at lunchtime each day that I didn't have before. And there were several times over the lockdown period when we were going out for our daily exercise, where I would go out with children who weren't in school and were at home, and just to give them a sense of getting out a bit of exercise. And not very far from us is a little stream, about half a mile's walk. And so this particular stream, or this stretch of the stream, has got pebbles, shingle on the bottom of it. And so the children were able to go in and just paddle in the water. And that just provide a real sense of calming and an opportunity to talk about what had been happening during their day. And in an appropriate way with children, just to encourage them to be reflecting on what they were doing, how they were coping, and what they wanted to be achieving over the coming weeks, and also what they were looking forward to when lockdown was coming to an end. So I have some very warm memories. It was a very difficult time, but also some very warm outdoor memories of how those outdoor spaces during lockdown provided a sense of freedom, but also provided a space, a container for reflective conversations with my children that were different to what was happening when we were inside the house.
It's lovely that you bring in the aspect of water as well, because as we know, there's been quite a lot of research into what are the most restorative outdoor spaces, and blue space has been found to be the most restorative of all of the outdoor spaces for our brains, and giving us that opportunity to reflect, restore our directed attention, and enable us to then be refreshed and go back to whatever we need to do afterwards. And just as you were talking now, I was really thinking about the research that's been done on that and how it's really coming to the fore. I'm lucky enough, like you, I feel very honoured actually. I literally look out over water, and I love water, and it's so refreshing to be able to see it and reflect whilst looking at it. It brings a different dimension to it than walls for sure, but also other aspects of nature as well. So it's really lovely to hear that story. It'd be lovely to sort of do our podcast maybe in two parts. So thinking backwards first to over the last year, and then maybe looking forwards into what's to come. So thinking about the last year, what do you think has changed in the world of coaching in general in the last year or so, based on the world events that have happened and happened in the recent past?
So I think COVID has accelerated digital, and it has accelerated a different way for leaders, managers, employees to engage with work. Some of that's positive, and some of that contains risks or has negative elements to this. So let me step back into the last millennia. When I started work, I'm afraid to say in 1982, for me, I was in an environment where there wasn't a computer on every desk. There wasn't a situation where we had the opportunity to, if you like, work from home or even speak to each other on mobile devices. There was a phone on a desk, you had a notepad, a sort of a blotting paper, and you sat at your desk to do your work. And that was how it started in 1982. Now, of course, we're liberated, and lockdowns accelerated that of working from home. Many people have seen the benefits of that it gives you a reduction in your travel time, reduction in your travel costs. It means that you're potentially here to greet your children when they come in from school. And all of that's great flexibility. But the downsides, of course, of this are about how we then put in place the support, the training and the development, and the ad hoc conversations that employees need to facilitate, to grease the ongoing working tasks that they have. It's those corridor conversations that are an important part of work that are not documented anywhere. There's no policy procedure for those, but they facilitate work. And then the last aspect, I suppose, is because we're often working at home, because work is either in the bedroom or maybe in the study, we're always on. So I've noticed that in my own working habits, that I might well get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'll do an hour before breakfast. I might well be sitting here still at 8 o'clock at night, having had supper, but instead of going and watching a TV program, sitting with my wife having a coffee, I think, it's just that, I just need to finish off that. And of course, when you just finish off that, that usually leads to something else and something else and something else. And what I say to her is, oh, well, just be 5 minutes. And then she'll come in an hour later and remind me, you've been in here. So it leaks into the rest of our day. So the amount of time that we're working and the separation between work and home has completely disappeared for many people, or requires a different sort of discipline for doing that, and different expectations from organizations. And the other aspect is about how we then support people who are working alone, who might be maybe working at home with a partner who's working at home, and my wife works upstairs, and we probably see each other 3 times a day, when she either brings me a cup of tea or I take her a cup of coffee, and we'll have those transitory, just few second conversations, and then we'll carry on with our work. But that's quite different from what we were doing in a working office. So how do we support individuals in those environments, in those hybrid spaces, and how do we help them to develop? And I think coaching has a really important part to play there. And then the other thing that I think is really important is this decompression that happens when we do make the journey home on the train, that we're able to physically leave work behind. So how might we, and I think our lunchtime walks is one way that we decompress, and my wife often goes for a walk of an evening as well, just as a way of letting the day go, to park that and encountering the garden, nature, look at the babbling brook, look at the darkers and see how the eggs are coming on. All of that, that exposure to nature and the outdoors provides a decompression opportunity for us. And so I think that those are things that have changed as we've moved into these digital spaces. And we need to, as leaders, managers, and employees, start to be ourselves transitioning in the way that we support our colleagues, in the way that we're using coaching, and the way that we're out using outdoor spaces to replace that commute and to replace those corridor conversations.
And then leapfrogging ahead to the future with all that in mind, and shift, and actually how things are going to move forward. And thinking about coaching, and what do you think, how it's going to evolve? And then what are the challenges that we're going to be facing as coaches within that?
So I think that there are several possible scenarios. What's clear to me, and part of my motive for joining Coach Hub, is to be inside organizations that are the future of coaching, certainly at scale, to help them to be evidence-based, to help them to be ethical, and to help them set the highest standards for their coach community, but also for their clients. And there's a risk if coaches are not involved, and I'm aware of other digital providers where coaches, where they're more tech businesses than they are coaching businesses, where some of the practices certainly worry me, and I would certainly be hoping that as those organizations grow or scale or continue to develop, that coaches can be brought in and can start to influence those activities. So for example, as specifics, so at Coach Hub, we're really clear about GDPR arrangements, about coaching being confidential, about coaching sessions not being recorded, about data not being passed on to the organizational client, of the content of what's been happening there. And at the very heart of what we're doing is a belief that a human to human conversation is fundamentally different from a human to a digital device conversation. It's not that human to a digital device conversation doesn't add some value. It can add some value, but it's different. When I talk to an individual, a human, there's a different type of interaction than when I talk to my Echo Dot or Alexa. And not only in terms of the quality of the answer that I get now, and that quality will probably improve over the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, but in terms of the empathy and that relational aspect that is so important to coaching. But there are other providers who are in the space that is this cause for concern, who are recording every coaching conversation. These are outside of the European Union, so they may consider themselves not bound by the European Union legislation. And maybe the strategy for some of those organizations is to think, well, what we can do is if we record 1 million conversations, we'll build an AI app. We don't need coaches. We just have a computer answering everybody. That's super cheap and we'll make more money. I fundamentally oppose that. Not that that isn't useful. It could be useful for some conversations. And as the technology improves, yes. But at the very heart of, I think, what we're doing is about that human to human conversation. So I think we've got a number of scenarios that coaches ultimately get replaced if we take an AI approach to coaching, record all the data, we train a computer to do this. And over the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years, computers are able to replace humans in these conversations. And there's another future, which is around human to human conversation being facilitated by digital platforms that make it easier for individuals to connect and enable individuals to be able to, in a way that wasn't possible 10 and 15 years ago. I was coaching very senior people in organizations because I was factoring in, well, I've got an hour and a half travel time to get there, an hour and a half travel time to get back. I might be with you an hour and a half, but that's really half a day. So I need to charge you half a day of my day rate, and my day rate was X. Then it was a very expensive service. Fine for the chief executive, not so good for your middle manager. If we can remove all of that travel time, we can make coaching much more cost effective. That enables it to be democratized across organizations. So at scale, that can have that advantage. But coming back to that piece, it still needs to be high quality. It still needs to be ethical, and it needs to be one that looks after and develops the coach community. But fundamentally, it should be one that's about a human to human conversation, because that's what differentiates coaching from all of these other interventions that we can have, my engagement with Alexa.
It's one of those things as well. I think I find myself now, I've got some clients who I'm actually meeting face to face again, which is wonderful. I've got clients who I coach over Zoom or over the phone, and for me it's that next step, you know. So obviously some of my clients I'm coaching outdoors, some of them I'm not coaching outdoors because of the need for the digital interface if they are somewhere else in the country or in the world. So it'd be really fascinating to think about those challenges you've spoken about there, especially this kind of, and the evolution of digital, the sort of digital platform for coaching, and the impact that will have maybe on outdoor coaching, or potentially the impact this kind of increased interest and understanding of outdoor coaching might have to kind of balance that out and take people outside and try to encourage people to come away from their digital platforms and actually take that walk. So where do you think that might take us in terms of outdoor coaching in the future?
I suspect that maybe as you do some of your outdoor coaching walks in Scotland, you might well take a digital device with you. You'll have your phone. You might well have a map on your phone, an OS map. Or you might have some form of tracker that helps you to go, okay, yeah, I'm doing here. Oh, I think we could do an extra 20 minutes because we're deep in this conversation. Just going to go down that route rather than this route, because that just takes us naturally and that'll get us to a good point in the conversation. So having a digital device probably facilitates you even though you're in the outdoors. The other thing that I would say is I think that while scale digital coaching is going to be part of the solution and will make up the majority of coaching interventions, because it's going to be onto enterprise businesses who are going to be commissioning hundreds of managers to access coaching. At an individual level, then I think that there are niche providers, just in the same way that people might go to Marks and Spencer's. I get a low price jumper, you know, okay, they've only got 20 jumpers to choose from, and all of them are grey, green, brown. If you're in the men's department, they all seem to be smudgy colors. Sorry, Marks and Spencer's. But obviously Englishmen who go to Marks and Spencer's like a particular limited color range, you get that and you know what you're going to get. And there it is, it's price point, and they've been very popular. And that sort of mass market off the peg service has a role in the clothing industry. And at the same time, if you're going to choose a wedding dress, or you've got a special occasion, or you want to feel special, then you might well then choose, I'm going to choose something else, whether it might be a specialist hand knitted jumper, or whether it might be something else as a dress or other piece of clothing, some shoes. So I can see how different times we might choose different types of interventions, but this requires the niche coaches to build a brand. Part of that brand might be, well, I'm coaching in the outdoors, I'm bringing something different. We know, or we can communicate and help you to understand the benefits of blue-green environments. Or it also could be that there's something specialist about that individual who's providing the coaching that is not your Marks and Spencer's range off the peg, because maybe you're a big size or you're a small size. You just want to be individual, or maybe you're particularly attracted to a brand, or it's a special occasion that allows that niche providers to then step forward. It might be that the niche is that they're highly specialized in a particular type of service. So certainly at Henley, I've had conversations with students and talked to them about what was their unique strengths, their unique backgrounds. And just take one example, an individual who'd been in the law industry, had been a partner, had had a small child, decided what they wanted to do was to take a break from corporate law and setting themselves up as a coach. Well, understanding what it was like and helping other women who have been senior lawyers in large practices, who have then gone on maternity leave to return to work, and how they manage that process. Not every answer is the same, not every firm is the same, but that's a really niche-based service that somebody who has been through that has credibility, has a sense of understanding of the challenges of the law sector and the workload and the way that industry operates, and also at the same time has an understanding of balancing that against being a mother. And those early days, separation and managing breastfeeding, or the transition back into work where you might be moving your child from breast to bottle, all of that is issues that often mothers, parents worry about. And so having coaching conversations around that as a niche, that isn't something that a scaled provider is probably going to be able to do as well as a very niche provider who has that unique understanding of the UK law market at a partner level, and individuals who are returning to work having had their first child. So I can see niche markets there evolving, and I think that that's where there'll be a variety and a strength. And outdoor coaching is one example of that. We just were talking earlier about equine coaching. So what we know is that some people really value the touch-based approach of equine, or also working with animals, dogs. There's something about humans touching another species who are friendly to us, and that helps. We've seen it in terms of lowering of heart rate, and also about how those individuals then are able to think about themselves and their interactions, their presence, when they go back into the workplace. So there's some real value in this. Again, equine coaching or coaching with dogs or other species, very hard to do in digital environments. So I can see that type of niche provision as something that adds a unique value for somebody who's looking for something which is a little bit different. So I can see those niche providers growing, but it means that the people who are caught in the middle, who are just doing your bulk standard Marks and Spencer's type coaching, are going to need to choose between, can I then participate as part of a platform and I'll earn my income from that, or am I going to go out niche and identify something which is specific using my strengths, my unique skill set? And most likely many people will have a niche. It could be geographical, it could be a market segment, it could be a particular offering, and then combining that with also working on a platform.
Thank you for your description there. We've had spaghetti bolognese, we've had Marks and Spencer's. Oh, the metaphors are fantastic. and as our listeners, continue through 2022 and into 2023, just thinking about resources that could help them on their way, whether they are, moving towards more of this digital world, whether they're looking to niche, whether they're interested in kind of coaching outdoors. It would be great to know if there's any kind of specific resources that have caught your attention at the moment that you'd be able to signpost.
I'm always reading. So there's a whole range. What's nice that's changed over the last 20 years is the continual flow from publishers, Kogan Page, Routledge, Open University Press, Springer, Wiley, who are publishing coaching books. And I think our exposure to new ideas, to the latest science, the latest practice can help us to continue to improve. So at the moment, I've just got on my desk, I've got Graham Lee's Breakthrough Conversations for Coaches, Consultants and Leaders. Graham's a really great writer, fabulous book. And I'm sure from my own plans, I just try and read, if I can read a book a month, and encouraging coaches to be doing the same. And then the second thing I think is just part of that radar of keeping ourselves open. Is trying to engage with some of the research, maybe reading Coaching and International Journal or International Journal of the Oxford Brookes International Journal of Evidence-Based Coaching and Mentoring, or ICPR, published by the British Psychological Society. And there are a number, coaching philosophy. Just being aware of what is the science saying, what's the latest thinking, and using that to help clients to understand the power of coaching as a transformational conversation that helps well-being and helps performance. So I think that's one of the things that colleagues who might be tuning into this could just make a commitment themselves to say, how am I staying up to date and how am I investing in myself? That doesn't mean that I have to go to umpteen conferences. In fact, the nature of conferences has changed, but just finding some time when they can listen to a podcast, they can read a book, can engage with evidence-based research, that helps us to stay up to date.
Well, thank you so much for joining us again, Jonathan, and for all your support as well. I mean, I think our listeners probably know by now, but you were the inspiration for us starting this podcast in the first place, and you've been such a support to us and a sponsor for us for the podcast and so much more over the last year. So we really appreciate you coming back on and sort of celebrating our first year and the end of season 3 of our podcast series. And, just looking back over what's happened over the last year or so and looking forward to the challenges, but also the opportunities. It's a really great way for us to reflect on what's happened, but also to plan and think about what we're going to do for ourselves and our own coaching practice into the future as well. So thank you once again.
It's been a pleasure, and I would say good luck for year 2.
Yeah, season 4 will be coming your way soon, absolutely.
Fantastic.
But thank you so much for joining us, and good luck with the Coach Hub and with everything that that comes with that in the future.
So if you enjoyed what you've heard,
Like it,
share across your network,
and subscribe to our YouTube channel and LinkedIn community page, the Coaching Outdoor Podcast.
thanks so much in advance for your support.